welcome to another Comics Burst from the Full Force podcast, sponsored by Distant Planet Comics and Collectibles, where we take an in-depth look at the newest G.I. Joe comics and related titles of the week, with me as your host, Chris Mindbender's Hairy Chest McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. Joining me on this episode is Brian Mindbender's Hairless Balls Hickey. On this instalment of your absolutely favourite kind of burst, we look at issue number 266 of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, the beginning of IDW's newest G.I. Joe story arc, Snake Hunt. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this comics burst. Snake Hunt Part 1. When the original Snake Eyes lost his life battling forces of evil, Sean Collins, aka Throwdown, took up the mysterious mantle to deny Cobra a moral victory in their long-running war against G.I. Joe. But Cobra Commander, not realising the original Snake Eyes memories and skills are now implanted in the mind and body of Dawn Moreno, has never given up his desire to remove the legendary ninja from his enemies and will do whatever it takes to make it happen, including kidnapping and brainwashing Sean Collins and making him part of Cobra. Can G.I. Joe save Sean from the dark clutches of Cobra before it's too late? Written by living legend Larry Hama and featuring the long-awaited return of artist Robert Atkins to the pages of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, Snake Hunt is a star-studded 10-issue event that will feature every single member of G.I. Joe, even the dead ones. I added that bit at the end. So, Brian, now, before we get into this, I have to say that we have been building up to this particular story arc for probably a good portion of what the last story arc was about. You know, maybe the last 4 or 5 issues coming into this one were literally guiding us into this direction, highlighting like Throwdown, Sean Collins, having Cobra wanting to capture him, having the October Guard return, even though they're dead, and all those different factions all coming together because of this. And then we get this issue where I'm expecting like full-on action, adventure, boom, straight into it, and we get more build-up.
I did feel that as well when I first read this, but having gone over it a couple of times, I think there's a couple of really important factors to the story here that Larry just needs to kind of get this bedded down before we can really kick off on the action here. And I won't go into them now because we'll talk about them later, but
sure.
But I do feel that there's 2 key things here in this story that are really important to establish very, very early on. And I would suspect as we go into 267, it's going to be all hell breaking loose for G.I. Joe.
Well, I kind of hope so. But I mean, obviously, this is the return of Robert Atkins. So big shout out to Robert Atkins, friend of the show, and also an amazing artist. And he's always been like described as like Mr. G.I. Joe because of, you know, not many people are kind of in it. They're basically in the Rob Atkins camp when it comes to how Snake Eyes should be drawn. Let's put it that way, because not many can draw Snake Eyes like Robert Atkins. And that's not taking away from any of the other artists who do amazing work, but it's always just been that funny thing where, you know, that's what he's known for. And obviously it's a great opportunity to get the man back in the comic for this particular run. Now, he won't be completely taking over the 10-issue run, as we know that Nitho Diaz is going to be doing a few issues and they're going to be going back and forth with it. I think due to kind of time constraints, that's been an issue. That's been a long-running issue anyway with G.I. Joe. And obviously with Robert's kind of big workload, he can't do everything for it in this 10-issue run to keep it going and coming out on time. So that makes a lot of sense. But also quite nice to have Nitho back in the game as well, right?
But you know, we love Nitho and we love Robert on this show. And we're spoiled.
Yeah.
We are spoiled that we're getting 2 of our favourite artists working on this on Snake Hunt. It's
I love that name.
I'm going to savor every single issue as they come out. We're really going to be spoiled rotten, guys. Spoiled rotten. Did I say we're going to be spoiled? We're going to be spoiled,
and it's going to be rotten. Let's talk about the covers as well first. We've obviously got the cover A, which is Robert Atkins and Tom B. Long on colours, and it's got Cobra Commander playing the game, rolling the dice, and of course it's come up Snake Eyes with Throwdown and Dawn Moreno on the dice. I like how he's put them on as the wands, which is nice. We just don't get to see the number 6, so that's a shame. But anyway, yeah, so that's Cobra Commander, and that's been out for a while. We've seen that, we've talked about it, and another kind of, you know, solid cover from Robert Atkins there. Cover B starts off this amazing connected cover series from Jamie Sullivan, starting with Clutch and Stalker and the Vamp. and the mobile
Yes.
missile system in the background, and obviously the HQ in the background too. So we're again going to have some amazing covers to put together here, aren't we?
Absolutely, and I'm really lucky that I've got the cover B variant, so I'll be getting all the B variants for this run as they come out. So what I will do is I'll actually assemble that jigsaw once they're all in hand. Brilliant. And we can post some pictures for that.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's again beauty, really cool. An amazing piece of art, which Jamie Sullivan has shown off on his social networks already. But just to get that split up into covers is great. Now, an interesting thing on the interior of the cover of this issue is that they get the artists and creator teams the wrong way round on the retailer incentives A and B. The actual retailer incentive A is by Nitho Diaz and Jay Brown, and the retailer incentive B is the John Royal, Jagdish Kumar and James Afraidy cover. So it's, I mean, you can tell because everyone knows what John Royal's stuff looks like, everyone knows what Nitho Diaz's stuff looks like, but just if you are confused about that, they've printed it wrong, and they have, I think, even posted a tweet apologising for that mistake as well. But again, pretty solid covers, again showing Snake Eyes, showing Throwdown, Dawn Moreno on the Nitho Diaz version with Cobra Commander in the background, and they're head to head, they're fighting each other, which is interesting. And on the John Royal Jagdish Kumar cover, you've got Dawn and Scarlet leaping into action with Throwdown in the kind of hidden in the background in this hazy kind of red explosion type thing. What do you think of those, Brian?
Both amazing looking.
Similar in tone as well, aren't they?
The tone is very similar. Certainly the colour palette's very similar. Of course, I mean, the styles are totally unique to those artists, and there's no way you would ever confuse who did the illustration there. I think that the Nitho Diaz cover with Throwdown and Dawn Moreno facing off, I think that's a clue to what possibly might transpire as this story unfolds.
Yeah, I think we can safely assume Cobra might get their hands on Sean Collins in the brainwave scanner at some point.
And of course, John Royal's cover is again just another beautiful. This guy does great action poses with his characters, and we've got Dawn Moreno and Scarlet kind of up front there with kind of Snake Eyes or Throwdown, looming over them in the background, which is great.
Also, John Royal's been announced as a guest at next year's Joe Fest, so I believe that's his first American Joe Con kind of situation. So we'll be seeing John Royal at Joe Fest next year, which is interesting.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, so big shout out to John. One Stop Comic Shop exclusive is a kind of front and back cover combination job with Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes adorning both, with Arashikage symbols almost like cutouts of the white page, so you can see action behind them, which I think works really well.
That looks great. I love that kind of mirror effect of kind of Storm Shadow on the back, Snake Eyes on the front, and that kind of see-through on the Arashikage logo. Just really nice touch, and of course the characters, the dynamic pose of the two characters as they're kind of leaping right out of the cover at you, looks amazing.
Pretty cool. I do love that. It's a really nice cover, and that's by Jeff Edwards and Steve Lidich or Lydic. Apologies for not getting your name right, so I said it in every single possible way. One of those is correct, I hope. And then also there's one last one, and that's another One Stop Comic Shop exclusive by Jeff Edwards, and it has Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow kind of clashing over the Arashikage symbol again. He likes that Arashikage symbol, doesn't he, in the dynamic movements.
It does lend itself for kind of an interesting backdrop, and the fact that you've got the characters cutting through those geometric shapes, I mean, it just lends itself to a very interesting visual aesthetic. I love the colour palette in this here with the kind of red and black tones of the background. I think with the white border, top and bottom on that, it's a much more striking cover option than the first one. So that would be my preference of the Jeff Edwards covers.
Awesome. That's all the covers, quite a few this time. Let's get into the actual issue, and we start off with, again, something that I find quite, I don't know, I'm not sure how to take this, because we've seen lots of Revanche droids. Now, this is technically Cobra are operating this, but it's Revanche Technology, or Microtech. And it's basically this little kind of TV-headed robot dude with a sword who fights like a ninja and cuts a rat in half, almost immediately on the first page. A longitudinal bisection, impressive, as they say. And I just kind of, I don't know, I find it a little bit contrived. we've seen so many different drones so far that it's getting a little bit tired. And I was kind of hoping to go in a different direction, but this is kind of the direction we go. And it's really just to get this droid into Fort Wadsworth, to basically spy on the G.I. Joe team and specifically who they think Snake Eyes, right?
Well, a couple of things here on this first page. Firstly, I really like the bit of humour in here. So we have these kind of dialogue boxes, which is Cobra Commander and the Techno Viper back in the control room having a conversation. And Cobra Commander's like, are you controlling us? What are these buttons for? Don't touch those. No, it's in autonomous mode. So I love we have this kind of banter between Cobra Commander and the Techno Viper, it's just kind of funny. But you're right, it's another revenge drone. And my first impression was, come on, here we go again. But, and I think there's a really important but here. Cobra Commander is heavily invested in revenge tech and seems to be oblivious about the war that's been ongoing between Mars and Destro and Revenge. And obviously Mars has been compromised. Destro and Baroness have kind of, have maybe come out from under the control of Alpha 001 Prime.
Well, we don't know yet, do we? We haven't seen them since they unshooked their...
That's what we haven't seen them. So we don't know what the hell that's going to play out. But certainly Mars is compromised. Revenge are way more dangerous than we thought they were. And Cobra are massively invested in revenge tech. So there's a setup here. I think Larry's given us a setup to show us how deeply invested they are. And that could potentially bite Cobra in the a little bit later on in this story.
I do have to say, I'm not sure if it's the Techno Viper. I think it's more likely Dr. Mindbender he's having a conversation with, because only Mindbender could get away with saying that to Cobra Commander without being shot. And I think that it would be funnier if it was the Techno Viper, kind of like telling them what's going on, and then him saying, "Oh, don't touch that." But I just have a feeling it's Mindbender. Again, we don't really know. We can't really tell, but it's only Mindbender and the Cobra Commander who are having that conversation when it gets to them all looking at the screen. So I kind of, that's why I think it's probably Mindbender. I could be wrong, but I'm just throwing that out there just so that we've covered it.
We get some great banter with Mindbender and Cobra Commander later on as well, which is
totally
super.
And that's why I think it's them, because there's only those that would have that relationship. Like, Mindbender can go a certain distance with him, but other people know. Cobra Commander won't give them he'd just kill him. So basically this little droid makes its way through the sewer, tags onto, and this is another thing that kind of like, how did they time it to know that a Joe vehicle was going over that? I'm not sure how that really transpires. It just seems a little bit... I suppose there was an aerial drone telling them that the target was en route, so that's how they time it in that way. But I don't know, I just think there's easier ways for it to do its job. Anyway, it hops out of the sewer, jumps onto the Vamp, which is Rock and Roll and Clutch, who seem to be like... Well, it's always Rock and Roll and Clutch that are just driving around doing sod all in a Vamp all the time. They're heading to Fort Wadsworth, and the drone can't hear their conversation, but they are giving away nuggets that Snake Eyes isn't Snake Eyes. So that happens quite a lot through this. They spy on the Joes, but they can't get the information they need, really, or that they are unaware that they need, because Snake Eyes is actually dead, and they keep mentioning it only for the drone not to pick it up, which I think is quite cute.
That's a nice touch. I mean, it's letting the reader know that if you're coming to the story late, if you haven't been following this, for the last
20 years,
couple of years, that Snake Eyes is dead. There's this other guy, Sean Collins, on the scene, or Throwdown, but that's vital information that Cobra cannot know, because if they do, Snake Hunt is dead in the water. So
it's going to be interesting when they find out that it's not Snake Eyes. I wonder how that's going to go down, because that's obviously going to happen at some point. They're obviously leading into this. They're not going to be able to kind of confuse Cobra for forever. So I'm quite interested in how they're going to approach that reveal. But yeah, I mean, then we get the interior of this is an odd one. They're all standing on different size plinths, and it's all of the female Joes. It's Bomb Strike, Scarlet, Jinx, and Helix, and Throwdown is on the highest point. And they're all basically taking turns in trying to, best him in combat. The drone has managed to get into a different position to get a good view of what's going on. And obviously, by all accounts, they're looking at Snake Eyes, kicking everyone's doing really cool stuff, really taking the female Joes to pieces, really. Even Scarlet, who you'd think would have the experience to kind of take him down, even she comes a cropper, getting a safety crossbow arrow thrown back at her into her head and leaving a bruise. And he basically just takes them all down with ease, doesn't he?
Again, I think this is a very important scene in this story. It's a nice bit of action.
It's the only bit of action.
Well, a great chance for Robert Atkins to cut loose with some, excellent ninja kind of fight scenes. The 4 characters, yes, they're all female. They all have ninja capabilities. They're formidable characters in and of themselves.
I wouldn't say Bomb Strike has ninja capabilities.
She can swing a baseball bat.
That's about as close as it gets, yeah.
But notably, Dawn Moreno's not present. I think that's a big deal that she's not here.
Yeah, because she'd kick his ass. That's a good point, actually.
That's what you would expect is going to happen.
Yeah.
But what the scene illustrates for us is that these 4 formidable characters, who are the best people to take on Snake Eyes or throw down in some combat training, are all easily taken out by Sean Collins. And what this is showing us here is that this guy is a real threat to the Joes. If Cobra Commander and Mindbender are successful, they're going to have somebody on their side who is lethal, absolutely lethal.
Do you know what I'd like to happen? And I don't have any insight into the story. I don't know what's going to happen in this series. I'm like literally, this is just a theory I've had since probably like the last couple of issues, and since knowing that Cobra are out to capture Sean Collins as Throwdown. I think Larry's going to make Throwdown a bad character, and it's not going to be like bad Snake Eyes. It'll be a different character, and he'll just be on the Cobra team, and like that will basically free up all of the Snake Eyes space that we've built up like 15 Snake Eyes. It's like Deadpool core at the moment. But I think, if we had Dawn Moreno as the Snake Eyes for the Joes, and then this bad version of not of Snake Eyes, but like a new character that they decide, they give him a new costume, they give him a new code name, and he becomes like a bad guy for Cobra, I think would be a really interesting way to go for an extended period of time. I mean, we saw, in the past, Storm Shadow switch sides for, a huge amount of time. He basically became a Joe, and then he was kind of pulled back here and there with some brainwave scanning stuff, but for the most part stayed a Joe and continues to stay a G.I. Joe member. So, it's not within the realms of possibility that we get this Throwdown character becoming a bad guy.
I actually think that is a brilliant piece of conjecture, because there's a vacuum on the Cobra side. They've been relying on sort of tech for their heavy, combat capabilities. This guy could really mix it up in the Cobra camp, and there's the scope there, as you say, to create a brand new ninja character, almost like a superhero bad guy, but has his own identity. He's not a Snake Eyes, he's not a Storm Shadow, and he could potentially come after. He could threaten Dawn Moreno, he could threaten Storm Shadow, Budo's, Dojo, all of that.
Yeah.
Could all, Granny Arashikage, all of that could be now threatened if this guy turns.
And I think that's what they're getting at. But I've got a feeling it'll be one of those quick jobs where he'll be brainwave scanned and they'll have to deal with it, and then he'll come back to normal again. But I think it would be a good idea to keep that hanging and make him a bad character against his will, obviously, because he's being brainwave washed. But at the same time, I think that could be quite an interesting angle and could be the way it's going, but we don't really know that. The other thing about this is during the fight, Throwdown has isolated or has identified that the drone is watching them, and he throws a trench knife in the middle of the battle at it, taking it out completely. And I'm not sure if he's done it in a way to hide the fact that he saw that it was there, or that he doesn't want them to know that he knew it was there and it was a complete accident that he killed it or destroyed it. But in the end, it doesn't really matter because Cobra are covered because they're going to think it's revanche anyway.
Well, when he throws that dagger or the knife, you actually see it coming straight for Scarlet, and Scarlet is kind of taken aback because they've been battling with kind of safety weapons.
Yeah.
And she has this, what? As this knife whizzes past her head.
I mean, that's close. It cuts her hair, basically, doesn't it?
It actually does. It slices a strand of hair as it passes. So I think he has just spotted it during the fight sequence and, recognises there's been a security breach and just takes it out.
I wonder if he's kind of masking it in the fight to kind of throw Cobra off the fact that he knew it was there, if that makes sense. Obviously he knows it's there and he's taking it out because he wouldn't put Scarlett in that kind of risk necessarily. I just get the feeling he's done that knowing that they might be watching, and if they saw it, they wouldn't necessarily think, oh, he spotted it, he found us out, kind of thing. Not that it makes any difference, like I said, because Cobra are covered, because they'll just, they think it's Revanche technology, and they think it's Revanche that are watching them. But yeah, it's really, I don't know, I found it really interesting, that aspect of it. It's the only bit of action in the actual comic. We get a lot of kind of foreshadowing, a lot of exposition, a lot of discussion between, characters, and we get obviously Cobra Commander and Mindbender talking, like Mindbender saying Snake Eyes is more formidable than we thought, which I think is an odd thing to say when Mindbender has known Snake Eyes literally the entire run since issue whatever he was in the Marvel run. He knows what Snake Eyes is capable of. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why he's surprised at this.
Well, again, that's probably just a bit of exposition put in there more for the reader's point of view to say, look, this guy is really powerful. He's really, really formidable.
Almost like tricking them that it is Snake Eyes, making them believe that they think it's definitely Snake Eyes.
I think there's that, but there's also a setup that I'm convinced Sean Collins is going to end up on the side of the Cobra forces during this run. So we're just really establishing it. This whole scene is to establish that this guy's going to turn, and when he does, it's big, big trouble for G.I. Joe.
Another thing that we see at the end of this particular training session is another moment between Scarlett and Sean Collins.
If we look over the last few issues, there's been a lot of moments between these guys. Even going back as far as the Dawn of the Arashikage arc.
Yeah.
That I think was about 20 issues ago. You have Sean is like typing into his kind of tablet, messages to Scarlett saying, is it okay for me to come along on this mission? And Scarlett is reassuring him the whole time that, like, you're as much Snake Eyes as anybody else.
Yeah.
You deserve to be on this mission. And then since then, we have these kind of small moments where they're either in combat together or these more kind of social moments, like at the birthday party a couple of issues back.
I did think at that birthday party that it was more sadness than it was jealousy. I don't think it was jealousy either. I think she was sad that, she saw Sean and Dawn sharing that little moment between the two of them. And that's something as well. Like, we talk about we've talked about the fact that he can have that relationship with Scarlett, but he can also have that relationship with Dawn because Dawn has Snake Eyes memories. So that they can connect as well on a certain level, knowing that they've been through the same thing in a way.
In this particular issue, Sean has kind of like kicked everybody's
yeah,
and Scarlett has a bruise on her forehead from where he struck her with the crossbow bolt, and you can see that he very tenderly kind of brushes her hair aside to examine the bruise, and she's like, I don't apologize, I should have seen it coming. She's kind of brushing it off, but you can see in the way it's been illustrated that she appreciates the tenderness. She's smiling, and it is it's a nice moment. And again, maybe is Larry trying to set something up here that these will be on opposite sides of the conflict in a few issues' time?
Give Scarlett a difficult choice kind of scenario, probably.
She's lost Snake Eyes. Is she going to be able to take this guy down if he turns bad?
Is she going to be able to throw him down? Or will he punch her in the snake? Anyway, I'll beat that. I must admit, it's a cute moment in there, and it does highlight that is a bit of foreshadowing that's been going on. I wouldn't say it was clear foreshadowing. It's just that we're starting to get an idea of this relationship between certain members of the team. I did think for a second that Dawn and Helix might have a kind of romantic connection, but obviously that really hasn't been even looked at since they had that conversation on the flag. And even then, there was nothing really from Helix's side. It was just like they were just looking to converse, or she was looking to, Dawn Moreno was looking to converse with Helix. So I may be wrong on that, and I think it looks more likely like Scarlett and Sean Collins are going to have this I don't know, this kind of important relationship, which is probably going to end badly, let's face it. In any case, the next part of the story is actually the one that, you know, as much as that action was kind of fun and everything, when it's just a bunch of Joes training, that does take an aspect away for me a little bit. And this, not to have a go at anyone on the comic or anything, it's just I was really hoping to get stuck right into the story, and I feel like this is yet another aspect where we're just building and building and building up. And I feel like that's been done now for the last few issues, and I was getting a little bit like, okay, we need to get this going now. I need to see where this story's going to go. And the last part of the story, I think, is something that you were going to talk about in terms of its pivotal importance in the overarching arc. And that's where we see this kind of household. Basically, a young girl comes to the door of this house, and she's delivering for, like, Clarion. So it's like the fake version of Avon, isn't it, I suppose? And so she's coming in to get, like, I think she's there to collect money and all that kind of stuff as well, because of the fact that they owe this Clarion service money. So she's coming around and she's giving it the big one. And this woman comes to the door in a nightie or whatever, and she goes back in to get change because she doesn't have any money. And it turns out that she's a Crimson Guard, and all of the other guys in the house are all different Cobra troops. And this, I just thought this was great, because you've got a Hiss driver, you've got a Viper, you've got a Toxo Viper, and in fact you've got it's like a Python Viper you've got in the kitchen. And then you go into the garage and there's a Hiss tank in there. You've got, I think, a couple of Cobra Troopers, you've got a Viper, regular Viper, you've got a Heat Viper, you've got an Alley Viper, you've got another Hiss Gunner or another Hiss Driver, and you've got a Night Creeper, which is amazing to see. Like, I've been dying to see Night Creepers again, and just to see one just chilling out on the side of a Hiss tank is brilliant. And it's just funny because she's going around the whole house trying to get money and asking people, you know, guys, have you got any, like, change lying around? It's like, what the do you think? You know, what do you? There aren't any pockets in these things, which I think is just genius. I love it.
This is actually a brilliant scene, and I think the most important scene in this whole issue. So we've got Laura, who is the Crimson Guard. It's brilliant to see all these Cobra forces here, and we haven't seen that much Cobra action, or seen Cobra as a formidable force over the last, like, nearly 20 issues. So to see that these guys are gearing up, they're hiding out in suburbia, they are armed to the teeth, they've got all of their elite forces pulled out here. They've got tanks, they've got guns hanging up on the walls.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all in their battle gear.
They're ready to go, aren't they, basically?
They're ready to go. They are ready to go. And, like, this is going to be, we're going to see some serious Cobra action.
But don't you find it funny that, like, a lot of the troops are humanized a little bit? We don't really get to see that often. They're always usually wearing masks, helmets, and so on and so forth. These guys, like, especially the guys playing in the kitchen, the Toxo Viper, the Hiss Driver, and the Python Viper, I kind of feel they're very young looking. They're very almost like there's a bit of a sadness in there of them maybe throwing their lives away for this cause, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't kind of have the look of, you know, the scum and villainy of the planet that you'd expect to be kind of signing up for Cobra. They look like a boy band. They look very clean cut, you know?
Done, I think that's done on purpose as well. It's like it could be anybody, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they definitely look young. These are young guys. Well, maybe they're young and impressionable, you know?
Yeah, that's another good point. Yeah, like that kind of that angle of Cobra able to kind of, like, you know, get them to do a lot of things based on the fact that they're fresh and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I mean, but obviously the important part of this particular story is where this house is located.
I mean, that's the big reveal right at the end. And it's not just this house. What we realise right at the end is that there's actually, Cobra have occupied a whole row of houses, and they're all right outside the entrance to Fort Wadsworth. That's the big reveal right at the end. They're on G.I. Joe's doorstep, which is probably how that drone at the beginning was able to spot the vamp coming down. Remember, the guys were coming back from a lunch run, so they'd probably been spotted coming out, get the drone in position for as they're returning back in, and then clamp on underneath at that stage.
I reckon, and this is just because obviously, you know, drone flying is very restricted in the world. Like, you can't just kind of fly them anywhere, and obviously near an Air Force base or near a chaplain's assistant school or like Fort Wadsworth, like an army base, you'd no chance. So I think they've covered that by having families there and maybe kids with little drones that they're flying around that could then act as that surveillance for them. Do you know what I mean? Like almost like a cover of the family type thing. That's just me, again, conjecture based on nothing other than, you know, thinking what could be going on off panel for that to work.
Well, I think that's a pretty good piece of speculation right there.
Overthinking, it's called that, I think, Brian.
Overall, I think this is a pretty tight issue. It's it maybe the pace has slowed down a little bit compared to some of the recent issues that we've, you know, had a chance to review here.
Yeah,
still a lot of build up, but I think that there's a couple of important notes here that we need to mention. Cobra's over reliance on revenge technology is potentially fatal for Cobra. We've got Throwdown is now properly established as a very, very formidable character, regardless of which side he's on. And Cobra mean business. They've got their arsenal of military specialists and vehicles parked right outside Fort Wadsworth. And how the hell they got them there without being spotted is another thing, but they're there. They're right on G.I. Joe's doorstep, and the poop is about to go down big time.
I should say I'm quite worried for this young girl because she's obviously explaining to this woman when she comes back with her money that she got off a Heat Viper, may I add. She gives her, you know, the tip and everything, and she says, and she's worried because, like, if you know your neighbours, I think there might be something weird going on because they've all been suspicious activity, and I should probably report it to the police, especially where, like, we're right here. It's sort of my patriotic duty, isn't it? And she's like points, and then it's at Fort Wadsworth. So I'm worried that she's going to be grabbed by this woman and taken as like a hostage because obviously they can't have the police being alerted to this Cobra activity outside the military base, otherwise it all goes to pot.
That's actually how I thought it was going to end, with that kid meeting a fatal ending. But
well, that would be harsh, wouldn't it?
But obviously, you know, they are Cobra, like they're the bad guys.
I know.
There's you know, I don't think we're going to see any more of that kid. I would assume they're just going to pay her off, you know, give her a good tip, let her get the hell out of there, and they're probably going to hit Fort Wadsworth next issue. That's my guess.
I hope they do kind of get the attack going on the next one, because I must admit, I'm not going to lie, as much as I was excited for Robert Atkins on the comic again, which again, beautiful artwork, really some lovely stuff in there, and obviously all those different troopers at the end, that's another bonus for me. That really brings it up, just seeing lots of different Cobra related guys. And it's actually quite interesting that it's a Night Creeper who are like freelancers effectively. They're like, you know, they have a contract with Cobra, but they're not necessarily Cobra troops. So it's interesting that the Night Creeper's in there. But again, I love that. And the more we get of that, the better. Like, to see more diversity in the ranks, basically, is great for me. So, you know, like, I was happy over, like, as an issue, like, without all the other aspects, it's a pretty solid issue. And like I said, that ending is really nice and fun, but it disappointed me because it's more build-up over a period of time that we've had tons of build-up already. And I kind of feel like this was a great opportunity to get stuck right in, to have them attack Wadsworth, to have, you know, like a battle between the remain, like, you know, Sean Collins and the team that was there, have a battle with the Cobra guys that were there. You know, that's the opportunity right there. We don't need any more build up. It's been built up to death. We know what's going to happen. Just let it go now. Do you know what I mean? So for me, I'm going first on this one, and I'm going to say I'm going to give this 3.5 potatoes. And obviously the art brings it up. The fact that all those different troopers that were included bring it up. We do get a little bit of action with Throwdown and the Joes, but it's training and it doesn't really count. And, you know, some of the other aspects just bring it down for me, like the fact that it is a slow-burning build-up issue, the fact that you've got this again, we're looking at Revanche drones, and there's a different one every single time, and it's kind of getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I get it. You know, Revanche drones, they come in all shapes and sizes, but can we just stick to the script a little bit? You know, like, let's have one type of small drone, one like a battle android trooper version, and then a more sophisticated version, and then your Alpha 01. Do we have to have 5 million different types of drone? Do you know what I mean?
Well, you know, I'm going to say I kind of agree with a lot of what you're saying there, Chris, and controversially for me, this is going to be the first issue in like maybe 20 issues
Wow.
that I don't give it the 5 potatoes.
Wow.
Now, I still, don't get me wrong, I still think it's a pretty solid issue.
Yeah.
And there's some amazing things in here. Yes, there's more build-up, but I think it's justified for the reasons that I stated earlier. So I think it is justified in there. But of course, I expect it to be major action next issue, and for many issues after that. A couple of things that maybe I was less happy about are, this is the second security breach the Joes have had.
I know.
They had a Seagull breach a couple of issues back. Now they've been breached again, and they're pretty cash about it.
Mate, this has been the ongoing thing in Joe Comics, is the pit just gets compromised so often. As Star Viper invaded it, they had Cobra attack it like about 5 or 6 times when it was in Utah. They've had so many different bases compromised. It's like, it's so simple to do it.
They should be freaking out. The first time the Seagull only kind of got in, on the periphery of the base.
Yeah.
This is right into their training center and has been filming a piece of training action. So that's very revealing. Like, that's detail that your enemy's getting that they shouldn't be getting. And when something like that happens, you've got to be anticipating some sort of an attack or an assault.
Yeah.
So the fact that they all reacted so casually about that, and of course, paramount in everybody's mind is, did we give away that, Sean here is not actually Snake Eyes?
I mean, why are they talking about it as well? That's a stupid thing to be doing. Like, if that's the case, then nobody should be talking about it. Like, everyone should be like stum about that aspect of it.
And yet, let's just check the base for any more security breaches just in case. So that was one thing that really I felt a little bit let down about. And I'm very forgiving of Larry's work, and I'm a huge fan of what he does. But I just felt it was just worth mentioning it on the burst, and that kind of detracts a little bit for me. The other thing that I kind of mentioned, pre-show before we started recording, I felt that the colours on this, in parts, seem a little bit heavy-handed. And I don't like to criticise the visual creative team on anything, because as a designer myself, I understand there's a lot of constraints. That nobody ever knows about, that only the artist ever gets to deal with that. And so we don't know what constraints are on them. But, assuming that there was, massive time constraints there, in parts, the colours feel very heavy-handed and very, very rushed, particularly on some of the facial shadows look a bit OTT. And I think that takes away from Robert Atkins' beautiful work a little bit. Now, there's obviously parts where the colours are beautiful and fantastic as well, but it just seems in certain pages it's just a bit very, very heavy on the ink. Again, it could be a print issue as well. It might have nothing to do with the artist. But that was something that really stood out for me when I was so looking forward to, pouring over these pages and just enjoying Robert Atkins' work. And while there's a lot of beautiful stuff in there, the colouring, I felt, in parts just let it down a little bit for me. Maybe because I'd hyped it up in my own head.
I think we both had. And I mean, I had heavy expectations for what to expect. And I think that's one of the problems, isn't it? Like, you got to kind of put that out of your mind sometimes and just go like, okay, I don't know what to expect. I'm just going to let it hit me and see what happens. But I really did not want another build-up issue. Like, I'm kind of like, okay, we've had this now. Like, you were building this up like a long time ago in the issues. Like, this has been going on for a number of issues now where everything's converging, and it's like, surely that issue 1, that process is to allow you to hit the ground running when it comes to that first issue. So yeah, I'm kind of looking at it like, okay, so we're probably in for the long haul on this one. I honestly don't think we're going to get action necessarily in the next issue. I think it's going to be I think there's going to be an element of build up within this arc still to go. Like, we still need to get the October Guard on the scene. We need to get the Dreadnoks in position. We need to have Destro and Baroness kind of figured out. Like, I guess I get a feeling that maybe the next issue might be about the Destro and the Baroness escaping the Revanche facility, or tricking the Revanche droid that he's in control. I don't know how you can do that. I mean, surely he knows when he's not in control of, them. But there's going to be a lot of elements like that need to be not tied up, but they need to be put into better positions for the story action to kind of kick off. So I think we're going to have to kind of just belay our expectations on this one and just let it flow over us initially.
I think that you're right there, Chris. There's a lot of chess pieces that have to be maneuvered into position. That could be done in and around some kind of, action happening. Cobra are poised, they're ready to go. The Joes haven't a clue what's happening, they're asleep at the wheel. But you're with the Dreadnoks, the October Guard. We don't know where they're at this stage. And Destro and the Baroness, that's a whole other kettle of fish there too. All in, I think it's a solid issue. The couple of kind of critiques I have, I think, are pretty minor overall.
Yeah.
So I'd still be recommending this to the listeners, and I'd be saying, go pick it up, and I would give it 4.5 potatoes.
It got half a potato knocked off for Brian on that one, so that is significant in actual fact. But at the same time, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Big shout out to Robert Atkins again. Like, congrats on obviously getting back on G.I. Joe again. It's great to have you back, and I can't wait to see, honestly, more art from you in the coming issues. Same for Netho as well. Like, really looking forward to seeing what he does for this run. He's already been posting some amazing kind of like sketches he's been doing for certain panels, including one of like all the aspids flying over like almost like an industrial complex or a town or something. It looks amazing.
Lovely.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing what's to come. In any case, yeah, like, again, you don't want to be negative on it, because that's the other thing. I still enjoyed reading the issue. I still enjoyed it, and there's still elements of it I really love, like seeing all those different Cobra Troopers. So, I've got to wind my neck in. In any case, dude, thank you for jumping on and chatting 266.
My pleasure indeed.
And we'll be jumping on another Disorder of Battle very soon. I've got a little one lined up that we can jump on.
Lovely.
So, hopefully we'll jump on that maybe next week. But for all the listeners out there, that's it for this instalment of the Full Force Comic Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host Brian Hickey. See you next time, and as always, full force, full hunt.
Excellent. Full hunt.
Full snake hunt. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always, you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @The Full Force, liking the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Full Force, and if you would like to contact the show, you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback or questions. We have also started a Patreon page, so if you want to see your name up in lights on these videos or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/The Full Force Podcast, or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force. And a big shout out to our sponsors, Distant Planet Comics and Collectibles, located at 601 Business Loop 70 West Suite 263, located in the Parkade Center, Columbia, Missouri. You can visit their website at distantplanetcomics.com and on Facebook at facebook.com/Distant Planet Comics.